I got rid of the chainsaw guy, and then I was like, okay, he's done, that's fine. And then someone else like leant down and picked it up, and I went, you're not allowed to do that. That's not how this works.
We recently went hands-on with a 3-hour preview of Resident Evil Requiem. Senior editor Wes Fenlon and staff writer Elie Gould shared their impressions of the demo, including how frightening it felt, the balance between survival and action elements, the difference between first-person and third-person modes, and much more. All B-roll footage is provided by Capcom, as direct capture was not permitted. Survival versus action horror. Are we getting the best of both worlds?
I found the intro to this game, or at least the intro to the demo segment we played, which feels like it's probably pretty close to the beginning of the game. It felt like a little bit of a statement to me on how they're approaching this idea of combining the kind of classical Resident Evil like puzzle solving survival horror with the more action, I guess, like branch that Leon has taken, in that immediately a zombie shows up with a chainsaw and kills somebody, and then you have to fight them using Leon's kind of like parry system from Resident Evil 4 Remake, but then you get to pick up the chainsaw and use it yourself, which felt like both a bit of catharsis and sort of like a surprise, we're throwing some mechanics at you that you haven't had before. So yeah, I thought that was a really clever touch on their part, and I enjoyed picking up the chainsaw. I don't know how you felt about that.
Oh my god, it was amazing. Especially after you managed, like, when you knock one of the zombies down with the chainsaw, because they'll also pick it up. I got rid of the chainsaw guy, and then I was like, okay, he's done, that's fine. And then someone else like leant down and picked it up, and I went, you're not allowed to do that. That's not how this works. But if you knock them down, they flail around like a fish as well with the chainsaw, and you're having to dance around it.
They put some physics on it, right? Yeah, it felt like they did quite a few new little things with an enemy that, you know, I guess I don't know that I've ever gotten calm around chainsaw enemies in Resident Evil, but it's like, this is something that I saw literally 22 years ago at this point, 21 years ago when Resident Evil 4 came out. So I kind of like thought I knew what to expect in that moment, and then it turns out I didn't. Then most of what we played was Grace up until towards the very end of the demo. This feels like this is going to be the structure of the game, is you're going to do these big kind of classic puzzly segments with Grace, and then kick over to Leon for maybe equally length segments or maybe much shorter segments, I'm not sure, where you get to just go like all out with the action. So how do you feel about the more like limited inventory survival horror, finding doors that need 3 like strange, you know, objects with like weird creepy emblems on them to unlock?
I mean, I would be lying if I say I didn't like really love it, because it's such a big part of Resi that it would be kind of odd to hate it. I do prefer the action. 4 is probably my favorite. Resi 2 is very close, but Resi 4 is definitely my favorite of the earlier games, and overall, because who doesn't love feeling like a badass, just taking out like things left, right, and center? But what I did like in what we got to see in the preview was how it felt like this mishmash of Grace and Leon. Like, Grace is very, you know, that traditional puzzle solving. You have to kind of really manage what ammo you have, what health you have, and you have to like kind of, you know, figure out which enemies you need to kill when, in what order, and who's not worth it and who is, and whatever. And then you go over to Leon, and Leon's part almost feels like a reward for like doing that, because then you can because then you can just go and just kill everyone. I don't know if like, remember the blister head enemies, which are kind of like the souped up zombies, and I sunk probably 14 bullets into its head as Grace, because I was so frustrated, and then I was even more frustrated because I'd wasted so much ammo.
Because it didn't work.
And it just carried on walking towards me, and I was like, okay, I can't do this. And then you come back as Leon, and then you can just one shot.
How scary is it?
When I decided to go after one of the big enemies in the game, which it feels like they're sort of taking the idea that they had with Resident Evil 2 Remake, as well as RE8 was really big on the kind of roaming, you know, mini bosses, right? Who sort of like control a space. And I think I actually spent too long as Grace being scared of a couple of these enemies and not going after them. There's this giant, chef, like, of course, there's a big chef with a butcher knife who's roaming the halls, who kind of makes it so you have to take certain paths around him. And then how would you describe the second one who pops out in the West Wing? A giant flesh baby?
Bang on. Giant flesh baby. Yeah, that was really cathartic for me, actually, because I spent so long in that dealing with that big baby, the fetus in Resi 8. I actually watched someone normal play through that segment, and it's apparently meant to take like 15 minutes. Not me. 45 minutes, because I had to keep pausing because it was just so awful. And so seeing that again, I was like, this time I'm gonna be better. But I don't know, as soon as you kind of learn the rules to them, they do become a lot less scary. Where they can go, where they can't go, because there are some places in this where they can't go, and you are safe. And how quick they move, I actually found them quite forgiving once I started testing those boundaries.
They're definitely obstacles, but they're not Mr. X who can show up anywhere, like you were saying, but also like he was unkillable until like a specific like event in RE2, right? Whereas these enemies, you actually can kill them, you just need a lot of ammo basically to go up against them.
I think it's, I don't know, something that's meant to be, it's again another enemy that's meant to be a bigger issue for Grace. I feel like that's Grace's hurdle to overcome. A mini boss isn't even like thing for Leon, like Leon didn't even care, and you can kind of make pretty quick work. I didn't even try and take him on as Grace.
One other thing I found striking, it felt like a flavor of RE that maybe you get in RE7 a bit, but he's hurling obscenities at you the whole time in a way that felt more, I don't know, urban horror, or sort of like it's a different flavor of sort of meanness that is like different than sort of the goofier sensibility that I feel like RE horror often has, which like that was the only thing in the game that really kind of set me on edge a little bit. Was like, man, this guy messed up. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of people actually in like the Resi community talk about how haunting almost these zombies look. Some people have pointed out that if you look at some of them, they've got like tears running down their face, which is really awful considering we don't know for sure like what is really going on, right? And I'm sure that's something we'll figure out towards the end of the game. But there is definitely an implication that a lot of people infected didn't have a say in it and also had no idea what was going to happen. So there is a little bit more of like, I don't know if it's sad for them. I read this one like bit of, I think it was like from a diary or something that basically said that zombies, or this strain of the T virus, will have zombies that kind of regain habits. Like they'll keep some of their habits, which is why if you go into the kitchen and see the chef, he's like mumbling about keeping like a clean space and like what is for dinner. And I was like, ooh, what is for dinner? I don't know. But like,
nothing good. Whatever he's serving up, you don't want it.
Me. Because I do like the absurdity of the kind of wacky zombies that are just taken over and like do weird things.
First person versus third person. Tell us about both modes.
The default settings for the first person camera were quite slow in terms of like the analog stick movement. We were playing on console, and also there's like a lot of head wobble by default, and thankfully both of those things you can tweak. Because when I switched to the first person, I was getting quite motion sick, which is not something that happens for me in games much. So I was kind of like thrown. I was like, why do I feel queasy playing this in first person? So I did third person for a while, and then I was like, okay, I'll try it again. And I like tweaked the settings enough that I could move the camera a little faster. And I think I was just feeling that sort of disconnect between like how my neck would move and how slow the analog stick was going. So once I tweaked that, then it started feeling okay. And I did feel like I was getting a bit of benefit on aiming in first person. Did you spend any time playing first person?
I spent all of, I think, probably 20 minutes of like after you kind of get through like the cutscenes of Grace and you kind of actually get into the action. And I actually turned to the PR and I was like, I can't do this. And then he was like, well, you do get some, custom animations if you play in third person. I went, yes, that's why I'm doing this, to get the full experience. But I think as you would go on in the game, I think you could definitely like switch back to first person. I think it would be better, but there are certainly some segments that and I like horror games. I really liked Resi 7, but playing some of those bits in first person, I wouldn't want to play the demo that we played with Grace in first person in those dark corridors with that.
Just too intense.
Oh my goodness, I don't think I would ever get out. I would just be hiding under that table for the entire game, and we can't do that. So
how big do we think the game is?
What did you come away from the demo feeling was the scope of this game? Are we going to be spending almost the entire game in this space, or do you think this is just half the game? What was your feeling from what we played?
It's really hard to place it in what bit of the game. I don't know if they'll incorporate flashbacks, or they're gonna kind of do a bit of a non-linear progression to it, because they can't show images of a destroyed Raccoon City and then not let Leon go back there. It's Resi rules, right? Where it's the whole place is a TARDIS, and I'm sure there will be so much more to that place than what we encountered. I mean, it's huge. And I was thinking the square footage on this thing, my God, their profits must be insane. There's a basement, another basement. How many sub-rooms are there? But I think there'd be scope to expand within that hospital and kind of create spaces that are different enough that you feel you're getting something more. But I do hope they at least let Leon have some time outside of there and back in Raccoon City.
Yeah, so I think all that we've seen of the game so far that wasn't in our demo, but from previews that Capcom has released and stuff, have been there's a scene in a hotel, right, with Grace and her mother, which is kind of that doesn't seem like it's going to be much gameplay, if any gameplay. It's sort of introductory. And then there is a demo NVIDIA put out about showing off RTX lighting that shows Grace walking through an actual city environment with people on the streets. Looks really good, but it's also unclear to me if that's going to be a playable space at all. It doesn't really seem like it would fit with this game in terms of kind of actual core gameplay, puzzle solving stuff. So that felt at most it's going to be kind of an interactive cutscene-y bit. But yeah, I'm really curious if there's going to be an actual segment with Leon where you're getting to explore, or both of them getting to explore Raccoon City. I'm not worried that it's going to be contained to this space, because what we played seems really cool. But it's hard for me to judge. Does this kind of have the RE1 structure of we're just in this place and this is going to be the whole thing, or are there some surprises waiting for us outside of it?
I do like the comfort of being in that kind of standard Resi layout where it's you've got a middle hallway, you've got your safe room, and you've got you can go into the areas.
Tell us about the new crafting system.
One of the last new things in the game we haven't talked about yet is there's a crafting system now, which initially I was kind of rolling my eyes at, because I feel just every AAA modern game has some sort of crafting system in it.
Yeah.
But I felt it actually worked pretty well in implementation here, where resources are still pretty scarce. You basically collect the dead zombie goo. You get their plasma, and then you use that in combination with scrap metal to make bullets, which is complete nonsense, but a sort of nonsense that feels kind of fitting for a Resident Evil game. So I crafted myself 6 or 8 Magnum rounds for the Magnum that Leon gives Grace at the beginning, that very pointedly only has 1 bullet in it when he gives it to you, which is just a rude move on Leon's part. But I was able to do that and then go up against him, and I didn't actually finish Grace's segment because I feel I waited too long to confront that enemy, or to get past him. But once I finally crafted some Magnum ammo, went up to him, I was able to blow him away in just a few shots, which was not what I was expecting, but I thought was a cool twist on the way they've implemented these giant enemies in the past, where they're either unkillable or effectively these bosses that are gating your progress. And I was oh, this guy wasn't actually gating my progress. I just needed to handle it properly, basically.
What's your overall thoughts on the demo?
Yeah, I think this is the most excited I've been for a Resi game in quite a while. I kind of wasn't interested in RE4 Remake, not because I thought it would be bad. I think it was great from like the bits of it I played. And 7 and 8 were cool doing their own thing, but I really like the idea of the kind of the dichotomy of Resident Evil being in one game. I hope that balance works as well in the full game as I felt like it did in this preview. Any closing thoughts? Any predictions? Twists? Characters that might show up? Is Leon gonna die in the end? Like,
I'm not listening. I will not hear that.
I think the fan base would probably revolt. You're probably safe.
Jill Valentine. I don't know. I feel like wherever Leon is, Ada kind of tends to follow. Like I love Ada Wong, so again, I'd be happy to see any of them, to be honest. I don't know. I stand by the fact that there are certainly some old Resi characters that probably should kick the bucket. Chris being one of them. That poor man. Put him out of his misery. You know? But I don't know. I would be really sad to see Leon go. I think it's weird me saying it's not his time because he's a fictional character. But I don't know. It would have to be a really good death, and it would have to like be very meaningful for everything he's been through, for him to die in some hospital surrounded by maybe one other person. I'd be a bit miffed at that.
If anything, I predict a fake out death where he like sacrifices himself to save Grace in some big dramatic moment, but then actually he's okay at the end of it. But maybe like another classic RE character will show up to save him at the last second.
For all things Resident Evil Requiem and for PC gaming, follow PC Gamer.